This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
It's our Friday news roundup, and today on CityCast Boise, we're wrapping up the week with updates on an altercation between police and a pro-Palestinian encampment, then breaking down a hotly contested Boise primary. Plus, we explain how you can show a little love to your favorite podcast. It's Friday, May 10th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Happy Friday, Blake. Thanks for joining me again.
Thanks, Lindsay. Happy to be here.
So today, we've got actually quite a few things to talk about. I was hoping maybe it'd be a slower week. I don't think we get those in Idaho.
Not really, yeah.
So I really wanted to jump into the Boise to Palestine encampment and what's been going on. And they've had that encampment for more than a week, but Wednesday evening, there was actually quite a bit of news and quite a bit of things that happened at that encampment.
Yeah, there was. So just to kind of run it back a little bit for folks, this encampment was set up last Friday. So it's been up for, people have been actively protesting within this context for a full week now. And it was supposed to originally be at Boise State. And on Thursday of last week, Dr. Marlene Trump, the president, released a statement essentially saying that there would be a heavy police presence at the campus, and the protesters should know that if they're going to be, making any protest. And so the organizers essentially switched it up and moved it to the Capitol Annex. So if people know where the old Ada County Courthouse is downtown, it's just east of the actual Capitol building. That's where folks have been at. And last Friday, the first night being there, and then also on Saturday, they had some interactions with police. And essentially what happened is that a lawyer working with the group worked with a judge to be able to establish that the protesters could be there and have tents up symbolically as long as they weren't sleeping there. And so that is actually the precedent for that essentially is a court case that goes back to Occupy Boise like 2012, 2011. And that essentially says that you can have tents up, but you can't be sleeping in them. You can't have sleeping bags or blankets or anything like that. Otherwise, that counts as camping, and that's an anti-homeless law that the state has. So that is essentially the context that we're working in. They've been up for several days, asking people to kind of drop by, learn more. And the three major groups that are working with this right now are Boise to Palestine, who I talked to in the Hey Boise newsletter, so go check that out. And then BSU Students for Palestine, and if not now, Idaho, which is a Jewish anti-Zionist group, and then just a bunch of community members. However, some stuff went down on Wednesday, and I know you've been keeping track of this, partially because you were there for some of it. So what happened on Wednesday?
Yeah, I was, and I don't want to misrepresent anything. So I got there kind of right after things had happened and they were kind of settling back in. So they were at the annex on the lawn of the old courthouse, which is just across the street from the Capitol. And they were told that they needed to move because of maintenance on that lawn. And that's part of the case that you previously mentioned, that as long as they're not camping and they aren't disrupting regular maintenance, they can continue to protest. So they were told that maintenance needed to happen on that area of grass. So they moved over by the Capitol steps. And then that area of grass was cordoned off and, has yellow tape around it. You can't go on it now.
And that also, just to be clear, that's state land, correct? That's not a city park or anything? Okay, cool. Okay.
As far as I'm aware, that is not a city park. That is state land.
Yeah.
And so they went over by the Capitol steps. And then there is a state law saying that you cannot block the Capitol steps. And so there was a disputation about whether they were blocking access to the Capitol or not, but they were asked to move. So they moved across the street to the park across the street from the Capitol. They were then told at 7 p.m. that they had to leave that park because of the sprinklers, that the sprinklers would be running from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And that's when the police started to take their tents and personal belongings. And there was also a video shot during that whole process of moving from the Capitol steps to the park across the street, where it shows that police are asking people to move off the street. It's unclear if they were trying to move things or what stage of the process this was. Police are asking them to move off the street, and then several people are pushed by police officers.
Mm-hmm.
Boise police released a statement saying that several individuals entered the street near ISP's work area and disregarded officers' direction to return to the sidewalk, which led to a physical interaction with an officer. So in the video, you just see an officer telling people to get on the sidewalk and then pushing people. And that so far is the only statement that has been released. Then the encampment was told they couldn't be in Cecil Andrus Park because of sprinkler issues. Sprinklers needed to run from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So they went back to the courthouse, but just kind of on like the embankment, the parkway, whatever that is between the sidewalk and the street, that little bit of grass.
Yeah, gotcha. Wait, okay, so I think I might have missed this part, but so they moved from the courthouse, from the old courthouse, over to the Capitol steps because there's planned maintenance, and that was, they had to move. They knew that was part of the injunction. And then ISP told them that they were blocking the entrance to the Capitol. They moved over to Cecil Andrus, which again, that is city property. And then they were told that sprinklers were going to come on there, and they had to move back to the little strip of grass in front of the Capitol.
Yep, in front of the old courthouse, yeah.
Right. Okay, so that back in front of the old courthouse.
Yeah, they're back in front of the courthouse across the street from the Capitol.
Gotcha. Okay. So do we know, which I can't, we can't tell from the video right now, and we're still waiting on statements. We're recording this like midday Thursday, so we're going to have new information as well soon. But do we know when in that process that physical interaction with the police officer took place? I assume that it was when they were being asked to move from the Capitol steps over to Cecil Andrus Park, but also they were trying to keep them out of the street. So maybe that wasn't it. Do we know when that happened? Yeah,
so it was. Yep. Nope. You absolutely are right. It was when they were being told that they needed to move from the Capitol steps. The group was regrouping, trying to figure out where to go, since the previous area they were told needed maintenance, and they wanted to head, they needed to move from where they were. So they were moving over to Cecil Andrus, and it seems like in that process, BPD has said that they were in the ISP working area or working space. And so it's unclear if they were trying to move equipment over there or if they were trying to find a space to regroup. But it was during the process when their tents were being taken and their personal property was being taken, and they were being told to move off the steps.
Yeah. And so now they've landed back in front of the old courthouse, but just in that little strip of grass. And currently, as far as we know, police, like law enforcement, still has all of their belongings and tents that they were previously in.
Yes. I asked as of this morning, and yeah, people brought a few more, little tents or little covers. But what was taken on the Capitol has not yet been returned.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so just so folks know too, I mean, we'll see what happens. I think that without kind of having their like home base, plans might change. But as far as we know, there is another protest planned for Saturday on the Capitol steps with all of these three groups together. And, the reason that they're camped up right now is like there's a real sense of urgency. Of course, I mean, we've seen this across the nation with universities, which remains to be seen what will happen there because, so many universities have had their graduation now. But there is a real sense of urgency, as Boise to Palestine folks are saying, like, we're trying to draw eyes to this so that we can now draw eyes to Gaza, where Israel just started invading Rafah this week, a very densely populated area where people were told to flee to. So that is kind of the backdrop of their concerns right now, is trying to get eyes on that, and so eyes through them as well. So we'll see how they kind of adapt. I mean, this encampment was up for what, 6 days, 5 days, which is like pretty significant for Boise, I think.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The legal team they're working with and the lawyers that they're working with are looking at what happened last night. Again, recording this on Thursday, so Wednesday night. They're looking at that. They are, working on a plan, trying to figure out how does this fit in legally. How can they comply with maintenance, but also still maintain their First Amendment right to protest. And so I think this will be a developing story that continues to be updated probably daily for over the weekend.
For sure.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds, and I'm here with Keith, co-star of my upcoming film, If, only in theaters May 17th. Do you want to tell people the big news? All right, I'll do it. Sign up now and you'll get unlimited for $15 a month and 6 months of Paramount Plus Essential Plan on us. MintMobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 equivalent to $15 per month. Unlimited over 40 gigabytes per month. Face lower speeds. Videos at 480p. Active Mint customers by 531.24 get 6 months of Paramount Plus Essential Plan. Auto renews after 6 months. Offer ends May 31st, 2024. Separate Paramount Plus registration required. Terms and conditions apply if rated PG.
Blake, we have something kind of unusual happening in Boise. There's actually a fairly hotly contested race for House State 16B for the Democrats. And that's kind of unusual for a Democratic primary in Idaho.
I know, it's true. I mean, there's a whole other conversation that we should have about the amount of Democrats that are running in this primary election. And so we'll get to that in a second. I would love to ask for your thoughts on that. But yeah, so here in Boise, up on the bench, we have 4 different people who are running for one single seat in the House, which, yeah, like you said, it is kind of bizarre. And so if you live, it's kind of like West Bench, like Winstead Park area-ish. So if you're in that area or know someone who is, make sure that you know who you're going to vote for, because there are 4 different people running in it. We have incumbent Representative Todd Achilles, which kind of an asterisk on the incumbent part. This is the former seat of Colin Nash, who's now a city council member for the city of Boise, and Todd Achilles was appointed for this legislative session. So he hasn't won a legislative race before, but he is currently serving. And then we have Dr. John Chu, who's kind of running to be. His whole tagline is like, "Is there a doctor in the House?" Which is a big concern for a lot of Boiseans as doctors are fleeing the state. And then we have Nixon Matthews and Wayne Ritchie. And so the interesting thing about all of these 4 people is that none of them have won a legislative office before. None of them have been on a public ballot before, and that's not true. Wayne Ritchie has previously run for some positions.
A couple of things.
Yes. And but none of them have won. And so I think that I've seen there's a really good thread on Reddit, actually, from our Boise about deciding between 2 of these people that folks seem to be favoring. But yeah, it's a fun race. I'm excited to see what happens. We've kind of known for a couple months that this was going to happen. I'm a little bit surprised that no one's dropped out, and we're what, 9 or 10 days out from the election right now. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that all of them have stayed in. I, personally love to see a good primary, love to see, let's get lots of different perspectives. Let's get lots of different people vying for these seats so that people really feel like they have a choice. And there is a really interesting selection of people and different focuses among all of these people running. Like Dr. John Chu, a lot of his campaigning has been around, there's all these medical decisions being made by the legislature for Idahoans, and none of the legislators are doctors or have had the medical training of doctors. And so that's something that he's running on. Nixon Matthews has been running, this campaign focused on, Idahoans and who is representing Idahoans. Nixon Matthews is trans and has testified this last legislative session a lot about how all these laws that the Idaho legislature is passing affect them and affect all of these communities, and that representation matters.
And also he's super active in just a bunch of other efforts. I believe he's involved with Idahoans for open primaries and whatnot. So he's in there. And then Wayne Ritchie. I wasn't really paying attention to Boise politics when Wayne Ritchie last ran for office. What do you know about him?
So I know that he ran for mayor in 2019, and he, according to Boise Public Radio, they said that he was a provocative candidate. One of his campaign positions was that he wanted to make Boise less enjoyable, so fewer people wanted to move here.
Fascinating. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's a strategy. That is definitely a strategy. And then there's Todd Achilles, who was appointed in place of Colin Nash. We talked about that previously, but he's also worked with Vets for Idaho Voters and with the Open Primaries Initiative. So there's just, I really do love to see that we have so many different people with different perspectives who are providing options for Idaho Democratic voters. That's just so unusual, even in places like Boise.
Yeah. In that vein, earlier this week, the Idaho Democratic Party announced that they have twice as many Democrats on primary ballots across the state, rural places as well, than they had in 2022. So in just 2 years, twice as many Democrats are running for the state house. What do you think of that? What do you think's going on there?
I mean, I don't think it would be out of pocket to say that might be a response to what we're seeing happen in the Idaho legislature.
And that's certainly the party's response. Yeah.
That, people tend to get involved in politics when politics start to affect them. And politics always affects people, but once it starts to hit home, that seems to be when more and more people want to jump in. So I wonder if that is a response to what we've seen in the legislature over the past 4 years and how their actions have been viewed as extremist and not in line with Idaho voters. And so are more people running to counteract that? Are more people wanting to be involved and seeing? I mean, I know in Meridian we saw that our library district almost got shut down because of the actions of a few citizens. And I know that really activated a lot of people to get involved with county commissioner elections, with city council elections, with who's on the library board. Like that really kind of energized the community. We've seen that across the state with the actions of different school boards and different groups, that communities are realizing, oh, these elections do matter, these smaller elections, and we do potentially have power. And so we need to be involved. And I think that definitely is a factor in what is happening.
Absolutely. And yet a lot of these candidates who have never ran before have jumped in and said, yeah, this is why I'm running. I am concerned about where things are going. So I'm going to put myself on a ballot in a rural area with a Democratic letter next to my name, which always, I mean, coming from one of those areas, that certainly takes a lot of courage sometimes. But so we just want to let people know, the election is really right around the corner. It has huge impacts on local governance and state governance. And so this is the primary election, but still make sure that you get out and vote. And today is actually the last day to request an absentee ballot. So if you want to go that route, make sure to do it today. And otherwise, make sure you've got a plan.
Well, Blake, it's time for our top picks of the week. What's your top pick?
I'm going to cheat a little bit and have a couple. My first one is that this week is Idaho Teacher Appreciation Week, which is obviously so exciting. I mean, every school year is a tough school year, but, school teachers have been through a lot. the last few years. And so if you have a teacher in your life, reach out and give them some love. And then my second one is that I am going to see a live outdoor theater show this weekend, which I'm excited about. It's from the Boise Bard Players. And I just am excited that there is now, outdoor shows and outdoor theater to go to. And yeah, so that's it's like in a backyard. So it's going to be so like summery and cute. And it's finally warm again.
I love that. Yeah, I hope that sounds fantastic. That's the perfect way when it's finally warm on a weekend to just have a great show in a backyard and just enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm excited. What about you? What's your pick of the week?
My pick of the week is that we are a finalist in the Boise Weekly Best of Boise 2024 podcast category.
Woo! Yeah, it's so exciting.
Yeah, it feels pretty exciting. And we love that they're putting this on. Thank you so much, Boise Weekly, for having a podcast category, because that's huge for us. And as nice as it feels to be a finalist, it does feel a little bit better to be a winner, if I'm being honest. So we would love if you would throw a little love our way, vote for us to win in that category. And I'm going to have a link in the show notes. It's a little complicated. You all are smart. You guys are super capable, wonderful listeners. We have the best listeners. But I'm going to give you kind of a step-by-step guide and then a link in the show notes to my Instagram where I will have a reel and then something in my stories about it, just because it's a little more complicated than it should be.
And then, once you log in, you get to vote for so many other things. You can vote for your favorite restaurants, bars. I mean, there's kind of categories for everything. But yeah, make sure to give us a vote.
Well, thank you so much, Blake. I hope you have a great weekend. The weather's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I'm so excited. You too. Take care.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. The show is produced by Evelyn Avitia, Frankie Barnhill, Noah Snyderman, and me, Lindsay Van Allen. Blake Hunter writes our Hey Boise newsletter, and Priyanka Tilve was their editor this week. Our music is by Up Is The Down Is The. And if you enjoyed our show today, leave us a review. It helps other people find us. We'll be back on Monday with more stories from around the city. Catch you then.